So United did sue them, and they lost. But the point is, this website tells you to go to other websites, and it'll compare prices. So when I was looking for a flight to Mexico, it was the cheapest one by, I don't know, $4 or $5. So, of course, I was like, yeah, I'll buy it on here. And that was travelmary.com. So I went to book my flight, and it was $87 for each ticket to Mexico, which is an unbelievable price. So I put in my credit card information, I put in all of my home information, my name, guest name, book the ticket. I get an email that's very questionable about, you tried to book and we don't really know. So I call, and this is what they told me. They said, yeah, we charged you for it. However, you're on the waiting list and we don't know if we'll have a seat. So what you should do is pay us more money for a different ticket. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. Give me the ticket that I paid for. And they said no. They would not give me the ticket. I demanded a refund, which I did get eventually. They had to refund the money to my account, which took a few days, which was another annoyance. So I was really annoyed about that. And then I tried to take up the complaint to a higher level, and it turns out that there are about 4 people that work in customer service, and there's no one else in the company that's accessible whatsoever. So while I did get my money back, I am not too happy with the way they do business, and I then went and checked on them as well to see about their reviews, and they have about 125, 130 complaints at the Better Business Bureau, the BBB, for doing the exact same thing, the bait and switch. So people had paid months in advance and gotten to the airport and their tickets weren't there. People had been forced to upgrade their tickets to pay thousands more dollars for trips across the world because the flights that they had booked weren't there anymore, and they were trying to get them to spend more money. So definitely a website I would highly discourage anyone from using. And then all of the things that I've talked about so far are going into my brand new travel website. I actually launched it last night in time for the show today. I have blogs on there on categories from travel tips to Europe to Asia to South America. I'm still uploading things onto it because I have a lot of content to put up there with a lot of photos. It's a lot of formatting, but I'm really using it as a platform to tell people the truth about traveling. There's no advertisements. There's nothing but my pure and raw opinion about things and about the trips that I've taken. And I've noticed when I go on a lot of travel websites, or I look up, things to do here, things to do in South Africa, things to do in South America, it's a lot of images that have been bought from iStock or some other image rendering service, and it's a lot of cookie cutter things that people are just copying, pasting to get more views online on their website. So everything on mine is my own opinion, and I have been there and taken photos of it, and everything on there are my own photos. I've taken them myself, and that is younghungrytravel.com. It's basically about being young and hungry and liking to travel. So I'm going to have things about my last trip to Mexico on there. When I was in Mexico, I took a lot of photos to put on there, went to 30 plus restaurants, all which were amazing, and I'll get into that a little bit later, and took some photos of all of the historical sites that we went to, the river tours we went to. So we're going to take another quick break, and then I'm going to go more into detail about everything that I did in Mexico. back. So I'm going to go into more about specifically the things I did in Mexico. If anybody is looking for any advice or is looking for a trip coming up, a lot of things you do have to plan a long time in advance. I've noticed with my job that cruises, if you're not booking them 6 months out, you're really not getting a great deal no matter what, because if they don't have those cabins filled, they'll fill them somehow. They're not going to give you a discount a week before the cruise leaves. However, for flights, it's the complete opposite, which is lucky for all of us. So I found this flight to Mexico, paid a little bit more than the $87. I found it for about the next day I had to rebuy about $95, and this was about a week and a half before the trip itself. So if you're looking for something quick and that's upcoming in the next few weeks, I would highly look into trips to South Central America. I know Mexico's in North America, but Mexico as well, because you will very likely find a deal to somewhere in that region, because people are flailing to find people to sit in these flights, to give these free snacks to, and I am more than willing to be that person. So we were in Mexico. First, I want to talk about two restaurants that are world famous. They're on the top 50 best restaurants in the world. The first is, I'm probably butchering these names, by the way. It's Pujol, and it is the 20th best restaurant in the world. Now, we were going to go there. However, when I emailed to make a reservation, they were pretty honest about it, which was nice, but they were willing to accommodate my dietary needs, which basically I don't eat meat or dairy. But they said, hey, we're willing to do this, but it's not going to taste as good. And I was like, okay, thank you for the honesty. Let's go to the other one. So the other one, which is the 22nd best restaurant in the world, is Quintonil. And that is in the middle of the best neighborhood in Mexico City. And I did end up getting to go there. They had an opening on one day. I had put my name down on a waiting list. They had an opening. And you'd think that the 22nd best restaurant in the world would be extremely expensive. However, it came out with two people to about $50 a person. And we also had drinks, and there was food, and there were appetizers. They had a sommelier, which I did not take advantage of because I feel like I would embarrass myself with sommelier. However, we had wine, beer, drinks, appetizers, and we even had this small dessert that was a sorbet with edible flowers. Really, every best restaurant in the entire world has something with edible flowers on it. So be aware of that if you're not into edible flowers. So for the historical part and aspect and enrichment that I wanted to get, there's a lot of history, and we took a 2-day bus tour. It was really a hop-on, hop-off bus like you see in Miami or New York or Las Vegas even. If Dan was still here, he might tell you that there's plenty out there where you sit in the big top and there's no ceiling and you're out and you're listening to some tour guide tell you facts about something. So it went on that, took us around Mexico. I did not enjoy that. The company was called Turibus, and they completely oversold everything. So the lines were very, very long and didn't really enjoy that. I did not know that Frederick of Prussia had a lot to do with Mexican history and even had a castle built on the top of a hill in their national park in the center of Mexico City, which is their national park, twice or three times the size of New York. What's the one in New York? Park in New York?
Central Park?
Central Park, yeah. Of course I knew that. But 3 times the size of Central Park, and they built it in the middle on the hill. So we did that. And then similar in Thailand, they have these little boats that you can rent and go out on the river for half an hour to an hour. So eat tacos, have fun, drink cerveza, as they would call it. And we did that, and then went to a lot of the restaurants around, went to the museums. We went to the Torture Museum, which I think is always a highlight of most big cities. This one was especially riveting. There were no photos allowed because it might scare some people. They had all of the best torture devices around. Definitely more of a touristy aspect of that. Went to a lot of the outside markets. So, again, if you're looking for a trip, Mexico is definitely on my list. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go into some more deals and modes of travel so you can find the best trip coming up. Yeah. And we're back. So now I'm going to go into some more deals that I found recently. Trying to hopefully get some time off coming up. I actually recently just started another job at a travel agency, so hopefully I'm getting all of the insider information that people actually want to hear about deals and when things are going on and when people should actually book. So there are a few new companies that I have now heard of because I've been doing work on either their brand or page, whatnot. So the first one is Gate One, and I was doing a page for them today. They do all-inclusive tours all over the world, and those include airfare, hotel, transportation, a lot of food, and entrance fees to any of the exhibitions, museums, etc. that they go to. So the one that stood out to me because it's number one on my bucket list is an 11-day Israel trip. And they go to Jerusalem, and the Sea of Galilee, and the Dead Sea, and really over the entire country. You'll be, gliding around the Mediterranean. So that 11-day trip was $11.99, and that was, I believe, from New York, which is unfortunate, but flights to New York can be as low as $50, so I don't think that should deter anybody. And they had travel dates, several travel dates, and it was 11 days, and they provide, I believe, 9 days of hotels, all breakfasts, some dinners, some lunches, and they will take you by air-conditioned motor coach and an English-speaking guide around the whole of Israel. So if you are afraid of getting lost, that it's not safe, you're going to be with other Americans sitting in a motor coach, having someone give you the historical sites of Israel in English. So that was the first one I saw, and then that because it was number one on my list. Second one I noticed, because I have also never been here, was a 5-day to Cartagena in Colombia, along with Bogota. And that is about 4 or 5 hours flight from here. And that was a 5-day, but it's only a few hours to get there. So you're getting a full 4 nights hotel from that. Airfare, food, excursions, fun cultural things to do around the city. And that was only $6.49. So we partner with that website at my work. That's Gate One. But I saw these deals and I was really amazed by those. Some other things I saw were that right about now is the time that you can book really inexpensive luxury cruises for a lot later in the year. So I saw on these itineraries that 99% of these luxury cruises have different ports, whether they're in the summer or the winter. So in the winter, they come down to Florida, which is super lucky for all of us because we can have such a huge variety of options for choosing a cruise. And in the winter, they're either in Pacific or Australia or Alaska or Europe. And then when it gets too cold, like Alaska's negative 20 degrees, they come down to Miami, they come down to Port Canaveral or Tampa, and they fly out of there. So some places and some cruise lines that I had not encountered before, probably because I have never had the opportunity to take a luxury cruise. The first one was Crystal Cruises, and their headquarters is actually in Miami. They have cruises leaving in Miami, and I saw 8 to 10 months out cruises for $1,200 to $2,000 per person. Of course, there are some, extra deals, extra this, and those cruises are all inclusive, and those were leaving from Miami, going around the Caribbean. And then there is another brand called Windstar, which is ultra luxury. They are all yachts, all suites, the best service, the guest to worker ratio is 1 to 1.5. So there's 1.5 people to take care of you per person, which is absolutely amazing. And that includes fine dining on Michelin restaurants and all suites. And I saw that they were having discounts on the second to fourth person in the same stateroom. And then going off that, for people who are looking to travel alone, there are a few cruise lines, Carnival, Norwegian, notably, that have been adding solo traveler accommodations, which basically means most cruise ships are built to hold 2 to 4 people per room, plus a few more if you're booking a suite. But these few cruise lines, and more in the future as more cruise lines get renovated every year, are adding solo accommodations and pricing it thus. So if you go and you look at a price, it's for 2 people. And it's per person, but it's still for 2 people. And if you want to book that room just for yourself, you're going to have to pay a huge premium for it. But these cruises are building very small, almost hostel-sized rooms for the solo traveler, and making them a lot more affordable for people who are trying to travel alone, who don't need all that extra room that a second person would bring. So those are definitely not on the luxury cruises, but on the bigger cruise lines, it's definitely something to look into. So back to luxury cruises, I mentioned Crystal and Windstar. And then there was a third one that came up. I believe it is ranked number 1 in service in the cruise line industry. Has extremely luxurious, all-inclusive experience, which includes gratuities, drinks, fine dining, and unlimited shore excursions. And they will take you, say if you're going from Miami, you can go snorkeling, kayaking, parasailing, scuba diving, and that is on Regent Cruise Lines. Now, they start out at about $4,000, $3,000 plus for the first person, and they may or may not, depending on the day and the salesperson you talk to on the phone, if they're being nice, have some deals on the second person. But really, there's not much more that you can ask for. You want a drink package or anything, because they're already so all-inclusive. There's nothing really else you can get, and it includes gratuities as well. So I really highly recommend those. Worked with the people from there. They have beautiful customer service, and actually like to read complaints about things. So I look up complaints about all the top cruise ships and who's complaining, why they're complaining. And I found that 99% of people complaining about, cruises in general, and then more specifically luxury cruises, are people that have either made a mistake and then blamed the cruise line, or it's really no one's fault. So I saw some that were pretty funny. One person had fallen because they had drank too much, and then demanded all of this medical treatment that was way beyond the power of the ship. So, if you're going to go on a cruise and drink, you may fall over. And that person was pretty lucky that they didn't fall overboard. So I'm going to get back into recent trips. Another recent trip I had was to Dominican Republic, and that was also another all-inclusive experience. It wasn't actually booked through Cheap Caribbean, although that's my favorite place to book all-inclusive vacations. My mom actually booked it, and we stayed at the Hard Rock in Punta Cana. And if you're thinking about taking an all-inclusive vacation, there are a few things that you want to look out for. I would say Number one, it's all inclusive. Great. But how many restaurants do they have? And are there specialty restaurants that aren't included or you have to make special reservations for? If so, you might want to look elsewhere. I found about 20, 30 places in Riviera Maya, Cancun that are all inclusive and have 10 plus restaurants that don't require reservations. You can show up, sit down, have a great time, and eat teppanyaki, which I just recently found out actually is where they cook Japanese food on the hot skillet in front of you. Sushi, Mexican food, all kinds of things. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, you want to look for, okay, it's all-inclusive drinks, but what are the quality of these drinks? Are these bottom runners, like pure sugarcane rum, or is it high quality, better refined? And then if you're looking for something perhaps more romantic, you're looking to get away with your significant other, maybe you want to go to an adults only. Especially during the summer, if you're going on a family-friendly resort, you're going to be running into millions of kids and their messes and all the soft drinks they're leaving all over the place and the messes they're making in the room and, more importantly, the noise they're making at the pool. So another way to get around that, a lot of places, especially in Puerto Vallarta, which is also in Mexico, it'll be family-friendly, but they'll have adults-only sanctuaries, adults-only activities, and then, of course, everywhere has a casino that you can escape to. So this place in Punta Cana, the Hard Rock, which everyone's heard of, which is actually where the Eagles concert was last week, that place cost about $250, $300 a night because it's such a well-known brand. I've seen places in Mexico for as low as $85 a night that are all-inclusive. So actually, if you want to check out my company's website, you can go to Dunhill Travel Deals, and they have a whole section on inclusive resorts in Mexico, and you can break it down by location. If you want to go to Cancun, if you want to go to Riviera Maya, if you want to go to, say, Puerto Vallarta, Los Cabos, anywhere down there, you can find all-inclusive resorts based on the itinerary and day that you want. I found as low as about $80, $85 a night, and then the all-inclusive, all-adult resorts are a little more expensive, I think, because you're getting a premium, there's no kids around, so it appeals to a smaller audience, so there's less people there. They might have a somewhat smaller resort, but definitely all the same amenities, and I found those for as low as about $100, $120 a night. So we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll come back, and I'll give you my last travel deals of the evening, and then we'll depart until next week when Dan will be back.
It's a cold-blooded love. It's a cold-blooded love. Helps us break each other's hearts. It's a cold-blooded love.
Thank you, and welcome back to the Golf and Travel Show. If you're just tuning in, no, I am not Dan. Dan is in Las Vegas, apparently enjoying a nice round of happy hour drinks without me. He's there for work. He did mention all of the things that he's been doing in Vegas. He seems to go there at least once a month, which I would consider a very lucky guy if you like Vegas. If not, well, then you're good here. I want to go through really an overview of what I've pointed out so far. You can write down these deals if you want. You can take some notes, see what you're trying to plan for your next trip or vacation. And as far as golf goes, you'll have to ask Dan when he gets back next week. I am not the golf expert. I do play mini golf which I can mention in some of these all-inclusive resorts. And I am actually trying out Top Golf this upcoming Sunday, which they just built brand new in North Miami, right off the highway. Huge complex. I've never done it before, but the premise is you hit golf balls and try to sink them somewhere in the range, and I guess the higher score in this case is actually what you want. The farther you go, the higher score you get, and then you win, and that's the premise of it. I've never done it before, but it sounds pretty exciting, and I am very excited. So first I mentioned Cheap Caribbean, which I've used several times. There's no code, but you can go to their website, sign up, and you get $100 off your next trip. And if you have several email addresses, then you can go on several trips for $100 off. As long as it's not the same email address, they will not know. Royal Caribbean right now has 50% off the second passenger on almost every cruise that I've seen coming up in the next 10 months when you book it right now. I don't know how long that sale is going to be going on. I know they do these types of things often. So I saw that 50% off. And then if you're looking for even further, I would suggest going on a third party's website rather than going to RoyalCaribbean.com, going to Cheap Cruise, Cruise Line, Cruise.com, because they'll be able to offer even more amenities because they really want you to book with them. So I've seen specifically on Royal, I've seen free spa treatments, discounted drink packages, discounted gratuities, onboard credits, cash back, just by going on those websites. And you can definitely compare each website and then even call them, because sometimes, they'll give you a better deal on the phone than they would in person. Next, I want to again mention my brand new travel blog/website that I just launched last night after tinkering with it for several weeks, trying to get all of the coding and forms right and make sure it looked good. So you can tell me if it looks good. Write me. There's a comment section. It's called younghungrytravel.com. And I go into travel deals, travel tips, how to get good deals, how to avoid bad deals, how to avoid scams, etc., things like that. My newest article, which I have not posted yet, or I should say articles, because there's going to be a few of them, is on Mexico. I'm making one, 10 top things to do in Mexico City, and then I'll be making another one on specifically dedicated to food, and that'll be 10 top places to eat in Mexico City. I have another blog on there about traveling and getting good deals, and the two websites I mentioned that I highly disrecommend or despise, I should say, are Travel Mary, and that's Mary like Merry Christmas. It's travelmary.com and booking.com. And then even though one of my favorite websites steered me wrong into one of these traps, I still rely and swear on and often mention in my blog skiplag.com, because the guy who started it, uses a different coding formula to find the deals. So you really will find flights that you won't find anywhere else. The flights that you do find that won't be anywhere else are the flights where you'll be getting off at a quote-unquote layover, and you'll just be getting off. I've done it before. I traveled to San Francisco for about $140, and technically San Francisco was a layover on the way to Texas, which makes no sense. However, I got off in San Francisco. Of course, you have to have carry-on only bags to do that. I got off. Had absolutely no problems. Some people say there might be a problem if you use that airline again. I had no problem. Got off, left, came back. My flight back was not a layover. I was flying into Miami. I had no problems doing that. Great time. Another thing on my website is how to avoid a travel scam, which I can go into really quickly. One thing that happened so that you can look out for and avoid. One time I was looking on Craigslist, which is your first red flag, for a condo in Panama City Beach. And this condo that I found, there were several like it, which lowered my flag a little bit in terms of being questionable about it. was a condo. It was on the beach, slept 9 people, $400 a night.